Kia ora team, Noel Willoff here, host of the Beyond the Surface podcast. This episode today with Rob is brought to you by Moana Road. A massive shout out to Moana Road and the team who have come on board to support the podcast. So what that means is if you want to support the show, help us get more of the guests on that you love and that you want to listen to, the best thing that you can do is to check them out at moanaroad.co.nz. Link is in the description below. Please go support and tell them that the podcast sent you. Really hope you enjoyed this episode with Rob and you get something out of it. Welcome to episode number 35. Brother Rob, welcome to the potty.
Thank you for having me, brother. It's been a long time in the making.
100%. And awesome to get the connection into our mutual friend, Nick Jessup. We'll give him a shout out at the start of the podcast. He's the man.
He is, Nick the Legend Jessup, they call him.
Hard out, bro. Hey, I first came across your work from probably like many other people through watching your documentary Shot Bro, and you got the Shot Bro tee on right now.
Yeah.
And I remember it was one of the most crazy, most inspiring, most raw, and most fucked up documentaries I've probably ever seen in my life.
Thank you.
And it's something which I sent to all the boys, sent to all my friends, sent it to my family, and just said, you need to watch this. I've never heard a story or anything like this. So I was really keen for this kōrero, Rob, just to really start at the start and really start, if you could speak us through who was Rob in 2009.
Great question. Who was Rob? Rob was an actor, writer, playwright, screenwriter, actor for screen and stage, who was living with anxiety and depression, which was actually unresolved trauma. And the thing about Rob is he wanted everyone to like him, and he wanted everyone to have a really good time while they were with Rob. You know, I'm talking about me in the third person, but with me. And behind closed doors, I would just feel exhausted from pretending to be upbeat, pretending to be the funniest, to make sure that everyone's really feeling amazing. And I'm in an industry that kind of perpetuates a bit of that behavior.
Yeah, very true.
And so I didn't know any other way forward. And I didn't realize, well, if I look back at it, Rob back then didn't know that he had unresolved trauma. Rob was just operating on fight or flight. So I was that happy-go-lucky guy. And and I was doing alongside some amazing people, were doing some great international work, theatre shows over around Europe and overseas. And so it looked like Rob on the outside was having the time of his life. But I was in the silence. I was suffering and didn't know how to talk to anybody about it.
Because they talk about the mask when you're talking about depression, and it's, you know, you put on a mask to externalize or what you really have going on inside.
Yes.
And if you were to look back at you back then, did you realize, I guess, the severity of your depression and your mental health and your trauma?
No, you don't realize that. Most people I talk to who've been through trauma, all sorts of, you're just acting on instinct, on how you think you should behave. So a great proverb that I've read, and I quote it back to people, what's normal for the spider is chaos for the fly. So what you think is normal, and you get somebody externally come into your circle, what the hell is up? What's up with this behavior? What are you talking about? This is normal. It's pretty out there. It's out the gate. So you don't know. You're just living it.
That's an amazing proverb. And Rob, talk me through, I guess, the sort of week leading up to the infamous attempt of suicide by cop, which, you know, is a term which I had never heard of. I'm sure there must be other cases around either NZ around the world where that has happened. But yeah, talk to me and to the audience about what did that sort of first week look like on the lead up to that event?
Yeah, the lead up to that event is actually in my presentation theatre show seminar. And so I was in an unhealthy relationship, no blame. And I say this also publicly. It's when you get two people in a relationship that haven't dealt with their childhood trauma and haven't processed it. So we would trigger each other. We're in a very volatile, explosive, passionate relationship. And I needed to get out of this crazy relationship. So I did something very stupid and trauma-based, actually, to try and implode everything. So I went and slept with another woman, and I told her. Well, she asked me, and I told her straight out. And I thought, great, this should really damage it so badly that this is just going to explode. So leading up, of course, she's upset, she's angry, she's hurt, as she should be, because I was an asshole. And so I didn't take any alcohol or drugs leading up to that. Because I felt something boiling inside of me. It was like, I think my king called it was having a lid on a boiling pot. And I didn't know what was happening to me. I knew something was going to explode. So also leading up to that, also to the day of that wahine who I was going out with, who I told her, and she was processing it in her way. And she came over to my house and she exploded, as she would, because you're going through the roller coaster of betrayal from somebody you thought was your boyfriend. And so she exploded, and she was, as you would be, she was kicking, punching me, smashing things, and I was very scared of what I might do, because I've seen violence growing up as a kid. So I was trying to make sure I was not going anywhere near there, just blocking those physical hits. And I tried to call the police, and she ripped the phone out of the wall. Like, all of a sudden, I felt like the scared, hurt person. I felt like she was the dominant one, but it was all my trauma. It was like a massive storm was brewing. I didn't know what was going to happen. I just knew I had to get out of there. And as I went over there, I went to the neighbour's house, borrowed their phone, called the police on myself. When I went back to my house, she'd smashed up my room pretty great. She did a great job as somebody who's in distress, and I deserve that. And as she left, she was just yelling at you, everyone's going to find out what a effing asshole you are. And then I was thinking, great, now the world's going to know truly how I think, who I am. I am this piece of crap that my voice had told me over and over again in the silence. And from then I replugged back in the phone to the wall. It was still going. Called the police again to make sure they're on their way, and I described myself. And so from there on in, I was waiting for them to kick open the front door as I was getting stronger and stronger, locked into the storm of suicidal ideation.
And you're referring to the infamous phone call, which plays at the start of Shop Bro, where you're calling the police on yourself, describing your own build, and saying that there's a man with a knife, and he's armed. I'm just trying to really understand the rationale around going that way, but it sounds like there is no rationale.
There is to me. I've actually been asked so after my court cases, I went through multiple court cases. I had one of the police who investigate police, and we're at my lawyer's office, and he pulled a recorder out of his pocket, and he said, could you just want this little note here. I noticed his hand shaking like he was nervous. So he was pulling out this recorder, and his hand shaking, and he puts down, he pushes play, and he goes, can you tell us why you chose the police? And I said, yeah, growing up, I used to see the police shoot Māori on the news, right or wrong. And that's why I chose them. And so that's the truth. I've told another friend of mine, former policeman, and he was like, old school policeman. That would be fair to say. So was building up to that. That's why I chose the police.
That's the rationale.
At that time, or if you can call it rationale. Once again, I'm in the storm, which is angry, hurt, scared, confused. And all I know is I need a violent death because I'm a piece of crap. And who have I seen do that to people? The police. As Māori.
It's so raw, and the fact that you felt like you needed a violent death as well is just fucking tragic at a human being level.
Yes.
And so I think when I re-listened to that phone call that you made to 111, and when you're talking and you're calling the police on yourself, I did sense almost a sense of hesitancy, like in how you sounded. So did you realize you obviously did realize what you were doing, but where was your mind in all of this?
That phone call was me opening the door
Mm.
to get killed. That was the opening of the door part. And I just knew that all my demons that were swirling around me, like that's why I call it the storm.
Mm.
Everything that from my childhood to the present was like, you are a big pile of wow. It was like a massive loud voice.
Yeah.
Do it, do it, do it. So that phone call was just to open the door. Now the door was open. And then I stepped out onto the street, out my front door step, onto the street because I didn't realize the police had blocked off the road, because I called the police upon myself, said I was armed. So I'm in like a sphere, like a storm, like I'm in the center of the storm. And I was like, where are the police? Why aren't they coming into my house? Hurry up, I'm running out of angry energy. It's been angry for a long time, all day. So I go out to the street looking for them dressed in military regalia with a soup ladle and a tea towel to look like a weapon and a meat cleaver. And as I step out onto the street, that's when I see a police officer, two, one behind a tree, one behind a police car, both armed, both pointing at me. And that storm was saying, hurry up, let's go, this is it. The officer did yell out a couple of times to give me a couple of warnings. And the last one was, don't take another step. And I took that step and bang. So that just dropped me like a sack of potatoes on the spot and brought me back to the stark reality of where I really was at. A bullet searing through my internal organs, lying on my back in my street, wondering what the hell am I doing, and realizing I've made a terrible mistake.
It's a sober awakening.
Yes.
To have that anger and that rain cloud over your head, and then waking up and realizing that, one, you're still here, and two, the gravity of the situation.
Yeah, I think the pain was more like the pain was so overwhelming because quite a few people, what's it like to be shot? And all I say, it's like getting a steel metal rod, you put it in the fire for hours, then you stab it in somebody and it doesn't stop burning. And that's what's inside me. So I remember yelling at the police to shoot me in the head. It's broad daylight, Point Chevalier, people looking out their windows at their crazy neighbour. And
they're probably like, that's Rob. That's friendly Rob. What's going on?
Well, I don't think that we didn't. I only knew a couple of the neighbours. The rest from across the road wouldn't have known me. But just probably in shock that this was happening right outside their house, as you would be if you've seen your neighbour, and then all of a sudden he's lying. And I've had this reported back from a friend who was on the phone to her husband, reporting to him on the phone, looking at the window at me. And he said to her, are you okay? And her response was, yeah, I'm not the one who shot. So this was told to me later in hospital.
Wow. And did you have, in that situation when you're walking out with the knife and, are you having eye contact with the police officers? Because there's no way you were going in there to actually hurt them. It was all a prop, basically.
Yes, I was only, I'm glad you brought that point up. I was only out to get myself. It's just that I happened to involve everybody.
Yeah.
I involved everybody, and I was only out to get myself. But obviously nobody knew that.
Yeah.
Police were doing their job. Yeah.
And when you get shot, where did the bullet hole hit? So almost under your left
Chest,
nipple,
yeah,
very
chest.
close to your heart.
Yes,
Were they aiming
yes.
for your heart?
Well, that's a kill shot.
Yeah.
That's a kill shot.
Yeah.
And
Do you know if that's what they're trained to, like, I'd assume that's probably where they'll be trained to shoot
Well,
at.
I don't think they're that good a shooters that they could aim for the head.
Yeah, true.
So I just assume that you'd aim for the biggest body
Yeah.
mass.
Yeah.
And so, yes, that was...
And throughout all of that, you're shot, and I can imagine there's some significant bleeding as well. And you stayed conscious the whole time as well, didn't you?
I was in and out. Yeah, I was yelling. First, I think if you see in the documentary, I'm actually yelling out, sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, I'm sorry. That's heartbreaking, man.
And I've been asked quite a few times, well, who are you sorry to? And I thought about it. I went, I was sorry to everybody probably you've ever hurt. I'm sorry to everything that I may have said to hurt people. So there's all this remorse and regret, because it's shame, guilt, failure. Those are the three main tapes running around my mind at the time.
I read this really good quote recently, and it is about suicide, and it's saying that suicide doesn't make the pain go away. It just gives it to someone else. And
That is true.
I think that's very proven through your story as well. You know, it wasn't.
Yes.
It's the wider repercussions of what happens. It's the police officer who had to pull that trigger
Yes.
and what that means for him. It's the people watching. It's, you know, your whānau, yourself, your haura. So I just thought, yeah, that quote is so true.
That quote's true. Now, on the other side of that is those who are taking their lives, strangely and sadly enough, is they think they're doing everybody a favor. So on the flip side to that, that's a great quote for people who are still left behind.
Yeah.
Those who are doing it, who've succeeded, they think they're doing everybody a favor, and that is the tragedy of one of the other tragedies of this.
Yeah.
And the other tragedy is they felt that they couldn't tell people close to them.
It's heartbreaking, bro. And I think I've said it a few times on the podcast, and I remember my mum had this photo of a friend on her fridge growing up. I remember seeing it when I was like 4 and 5 years old, and I'd never met this guy. And I remember asking my mum, like, who is he? Who is he? And she was like, oh, it's a friend sort of thing. And then when I was finally older, because I remember seeing his face, it's like a photo of him at a party or something, and asking her again, I might have been like 9 or 10. And then my mum told me that he, committed suicide, and he passed away as one of my mum's best mates. And I remember thinking, like, that would never happen to any of my friends. Not in New Zealand. Like, none of my friends would ever choose or ever feel that way, that they'll feel inclined to take their own life. And then probably in year 12, so when I was like 17, one of my really close friends, Sian, unfortunately, you know, took his life. And it's just the same old story in New Zealand, right? It just happens far too often, far too common.
Yes, it is far too often, far too common. And we've got some friends from Texas, America. They've only got 10 friends here in New Zealand. I'm one of the 10. And they said they've never, ever been in a situation where all 10 friends have been associated with suicide. So it also shows how not comfortable, how used to this we've gotten as a nation.
Yeah.
And, sort of in the sense that, not another one, but we have the power to change it. And I've got a second chance at life to tell people to their face that they're worth it.
100%, bro. And so if we rewind back, you've been shot. You're now, you know, you've got this burning bullet inside of your chest through your internal organs. The road there to the hospital, what are the sort of next few hours after that incident?
Intense. So let me go to, I'm lying on the road. This bullet is excruciatingly fire. And one of the police officers comes and he compresses I still remember this guy. I actually met him eventually.
Wow.
He came to my presentation eventually.
Wow.
So he compressed my wound, and I remember him pushing down on my chest and just feeling just enough room to breathe, because I could barely, because it was so painful, and I just felt so like it was like a fresh breeze coming through a very intense hot tunnel by him pushing that down. And then I remember the ambulance coming, me trying to get them to push me full of drugs into my arm to try, but they were unsure of like if they should put this amount in. And anyway, I passed out. I woke up at the hospital. Now I'm being rushed into the emergency department. I'm still handcuffed. I've got my handcuffed behind my back.
So you got police around you as well?
Yeah, police. One or two that I remember. Paramedics. And I'm like flipping out because this pain is so intense, and I can't reshape my body because my hands are handcuffed behind my back.
Behind your back?
My handcuffed behind my back, and I'm like flailing on the bed. I'm very thankful for these two nurses who said to the police, "Can you take them off? We feel safe. Can you please take them off?" And I felt so so thankful somebody stood up for me then.
Yeah.
And just them taking the cuffs off, I could just bring my hands around just to stop. It was just so painful, just the position of where the bullet was.
You almost want to be in fetal position or something.
So I could just sort of just cool myself just a little fraction so I could just breathe properly again. So thanks to these two nurses that convinced the police to take the handcuffs off. And then I remember them talking to me crying and saying lots of stuff to them, downloading all this information as if it's the last thing I'm ever going to say because I'm going to die. And then I remember them cutting my clothes off, and I'm black out, and I wake up later, after the first surgery, they had to cut me from the belly button up to the chest and crack my ribs to try and find the bullet, but they couldn't find the bullet, so it was still hidden. But they had to do emergency sew up, which is a pretty rough job. It looked like somebody cut me open with a wooden spoon. It was pretty rough, but it was an emergency operation, so they went in as fast as they could.
He's trying to eject the bullet and he's
which was
shrapnel. Yeah.
Yes, so then I pass out. When I awake, I'm in a hospital room, and as soon as I wake up, I go, oh my God, my guts are on fire, my chest's on fire. And the first thing I think about, which I share in the documentary, is I hope my dad doesn't know. So all of that stuff happened in that sequence. So remembering that,
Did you at every point think when you regained consciousness that this was all a dream, or that you were in some sort of afterlife and that you didn't make it?
No, I woke up in so much pain, I knew I was back here.
Yeah, right.
But also, and I'm not the only one who's thought this, I thought, God damn it, I'm still alive. What the hell? Why aren't I dead? That's the plan, which I'm grateful I didn't get to finish.
Yeah.
So that was a thought running through my mind. Why the hell am I still goddamn alive? And then you feel shame and guilt and failure about the failed attempt. I'm not the only one. So it's just to be alive and share this is like to let other people know, don't do it. On the other side of fear is aroha, is love that you, and the main thing, the big trick at the end, it's love for yourself. That's the biggest, that's the cheat code.
Yeah. Got
to learn to love yourself. It sounds ridiculous.
Yeah, bro. It's simple, but it's the key ingredient, isn't it? And it is so inspiring, bro, for to have a Māori man like you, to have, you know, a strong figure who has gone through and survived a suicide attempt, which not many people do survive at all. But for you to be on this side and really speak true to different tasks and different approaches to looking after your own mental health. So just a massive tautoko to you, bro, for the mahi that you do. And super interesting that your first, and probably not surprising, but your first thought in that bed, or your second thought, was about your old man.
Yeah.
Why do you think it was about your old man?
I think it's all that father-son thing. The father-son, so I'm the first son. And my dad's was a soldier for a long time in the New Zealand Army. He's an ex-Vietnam War veteran. I think there's some sort of living up to some sort of expectation. I failed it in my mind. Yeah, I failed this expectation of being the certain son that perhaps I thought my dad wanted. And now I've brought shame upon the entire family just to top it off for being useless and not needed in this world. So I thought, yeah, you're a big pile of crap, Rob. Now this is going to confirm the dad, which was complete opposite.
And how long are you in the hospital for at this point as a part of your recovery?
The first session was 7 weeks in Auckland Hospital, and then another 2 weeks in Whangarei Hospital, because I had multiple surgeries. The second surgery, to try and find the bullet, they had to sort of give me a colostomy operation, and with my lower intestines and large intestines, as the bullet had perforated them and the spleen. So they had to give me emergency colostomy. So, but they still couldn't find it after the second surgery. The bullet was still stuck, hiding, crouching tiger, hidden bullet inside my body somewhere, bro. And they couldn't find it. CT scans, X-rays.
You got to be kidding me! Like, I'll bloody find it.
So it was a separate incident when the infections team came in, because I had holes in me everywhere, and I was in pain 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So I couldn't hide anymore. I was mentally having to be present every second of my life that I'm awake now. And then infections team go, got any infections? I said, I've got one on my back, I think, because I'm only lying on my back. So this is my great story. This beautiful Rarotongan princess who's a doctor, she goes, we're just going to check your back for you, because she said you got a sore back. So she puts me on my side. And then she goes and gets the nurse to put some more morphine into me, and an injection right into into where she thinks this infection is, but it's actually the bullet underneath it. So she goes, and I've got a little James Brown, sort of like a Spotify kind of thing with a speaker. My mate gave me this little speaker, and I said, can I play this James Brown music? And she went, yeah, you can turn it up. I mean, that's when I knew it was going to be real painful.
Hurt. Yeah.
So I turned up, and she's digging into my back. And then she's like, I think I've got something. I think it was, and she pulls out some rib. She said, oh no, that's a piece of my rib. And then she keeps digging in, puts more, another injection of morphine into the back, and then she pulls out the bullet.
No way.
So it's like the bullet's like sorry to go on these Kaimona analogies. This bullet is like a kinner needle trying to push itself out of my back.
Far out.
So she pulls it out, and I'm like, can I hold it? And I was like, you little bastard. Looking at this, you little bastard. And but I was the little bastard who created it.
Wow.
I created that incident. So yeah, I had to go down x-rays and blah, blah, blah. And then the police were looking for the bullet. They came down to the x-ray. I was high on morphine. I remember the detective going, can I, have you got that bullet there, Rob? And I was like, I don't know where it is. Like high as a kite. Do you know who might have it? Asking me this question. I was like in a dream, and I was like, it's a pretty doctor, the
princess doctor's got it.
Yeah, pretty much. I'm like, okay, this guy's high. Some princess doctor.
That's so good. Far out. Did you get to keep the bullet?
No, the detective said they keep all those
Forensic
bullets
or something.
So,
Yeah.
Keep all the bullets fired.
Yeah.
Evidence.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so you're in hospital for 7+ weeks dealing with these different operations and procedures. You have such a long time to reflect because your body, you're not being able to be physical and move and do what you would normally do. So I guess what were those thoughts that you were going through in your mind during that period?
A ton of thoughts. I was writing. I'm doing a lot of writing in hospitals, a lot of writing at home. And because because of the colostomy operation, it was an emergency one. It's literally every time I'm going to the toilet throughout my chest, it is burning the outer skin. So it's like acid pouring over it. Because it was a rough rush.
Yeah.
Emergency.
Yeah.
Operation. So I'm basically I'm writing poetry, short stories. I think I'm a poet, but I'm not very good. But anyway, I was just trying to get out emotions through words, and I've still got those. And one of them was published, and I still remember that. So I'm basically, literally, I'm so much in pain. I'm like, why did this happen? How did I get here? What am I? I'm recovering up at my dad's and my stepmom's up north, and just a ton of thoughts, ton of writing, just. It's painful, brother. I thought this is painful being alive.
Do you think they gave you any different treatment? Because you would have been treated at that time, I'm suspecting, as quote unquote a criminal. Do you reckon the service that you had throughout the health system in the hospital varied at all?
Now, I was very grateful and blessed that my friends went out to bat for me. So they went through a few lawyers till they found this amazing lawyer, Paul Dacre QC. So he's
Shout
a QC.
out.
Paul Dacre, aka Obi-Wan Kenobi. I'm not sure if you've ever heard me ever say that about you, but that's who I thought entered my room. I thought Obi-Wan Kenobi from Star Wars had entered my room.
Has he just got the presence and the mana
Present
of Obi-Wan?
and that silver-haired fox
Oh,
kind of.
yeah.
And
That'll win you a good call.
but also, I instantly didn't like him because I thought, this lawyer's going to throw me in jail. Paranoia. I'm like, but what he did was he took time to see everybody who was downstairs at the hospital. He took a time to assess the situation. And then he comes up to me. I didn't know this. At the time, I didn't know people were downstairs, cared about me. He said, there's a lot of people downstairs, Rob. And that says to me that you're cared about. I'm your lawyer and so-and-so, and somebody else I'm not going to shout out to, but somebody really high up had put me, who I'd met through theatre, of all things, had connected this gentleman, Paul Dacre, to me.
Amazing.
So I knew he cared because he took time to see who cared about me. So great man. And I had a court case because I had to attend court, but I couldn't because I'm incapacitated. I'm I've got tubes coming out everywhere.
Yeah.
We ended up having a court case in my room with the judge, the stenographer.
And that was before the time of a Zoom or a Teams hui. So was actually you had the judge actually came in person
with the detective, with the stenographer, writing everything that I say. But this is another thing that happened. The detective was rushing the court case ahead of time before my lawyer arrived. And I was like, even though I was high on morphine, I was like, where's my lawyer? This is scary. This is really scary.
Yeah, they're allowed to do that.
Yeah, no. So the lawyer turns up. Obi-Wan Kenobi turns up. And he says to the detective, "Can I see you outside, please?" And they close the door. It's like a movie. You can see just out the window, and he's stressing the detective down. "You're 30 minutes early. We said we're going to be at this time," because I was thinking, this is way early. So he gave him a dressing down. Then they all stepped. The judge was still in the room, and the stenographer. And basically, I just got processed inside there, get my fingerprints done.
Crazy.
At the bed. And then all I cared about that, my lawyer was there just to make sure that everything was above board. It was once he finally arrived.
And what is he saying to you? Like, what is the future looking like from a legal perspective?
All I can remember that is blah, 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 Rob, blah, 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 Rob. And my lawyer, all I'm looking at is my lawyer. And my lawyer's just nodding away. And I'm like, if he looks like he's not freaking out, then I'm not freaking out.
Yeah, nice. Safe pair of hands.
But once I was able to walk and I had to dress my own wounds, that's how I had to learn how to dress everything. I had to attend a physical court. And that's when the charges came out. 2 charges of possession of imitation firearm, soup ladle, meat cleaver, soup ladle and a tea towel. So it looks pretty bad on paper. And then 2 charges of grievous bodily harm or threatening to kill police officers. So those are big charges, and they wanted me to go away the system wanted me to go along for a very long time. I just want to share this. My lawyer said, "Rob, how about 1 year instead of 5 years in jail?" And I said, "I'll be dead." I was just being honest. I was like hanging on, breathing by a thread. Anything went wrong, I was ready to just jump off the cliff, take my life again. So as soon as I got that across to my lawyer, he was, good to know. And then he went and changed tact.
Far out. And what was the approach of the lawyer, I guess, to argue and bat for your case not to end up in prison?
So I'm not a criminal. And that was a big one. And also, this is my lawyer explained to me privately. I'm pretty sure we can share this. It's yes. He goes, "The Crown are in a bit of a tight spot, Rob, because this is a grey area. You were actually filmed on the street."
It's on the news, right?
Yeah. He said, so publicly, the public want to see the Crown kick your ass. So the Crown have to be seen to be kicking your ass. He just broke it really down to plain speak for Rob, who was like, "What?" Before he was explaining, I was like, "What?" And then just that, I was like, okay. So it's a grey area. And the police almost killed me. I literally, the medical reports show that I was almost dead. So the police had compiled every little thing I'd done, and I wasn't a criminal. In the world, if I pushed somebody over at playground when I was 10, that's all recorded. So I understand there's a police process, but I'm sure you only need 1 piece of paper to say someone's guilty, not 10 boxes full of files.
It's so true. And it must have been so, I guess, like triggering as well to have to go through and live that experience. And you're obviously very comfortable like in sharing the story now, but especially as it's so raw, having to go through that with the legal proceedings, you got people probably cross-examining you, being like, you are a criminal, Rob. And for you to be like, this is actually a mental health response met by a criminal response. How is that? Yeah, it's just crazy.
Yeah, and that's a grey area. And so I'm getting invited onto military bases. So police attend in uniform and out of uniform. And they're grateful for Shot Bro. So because it's about a human going through emotional trauma. And so I've written an apology letter to that officer who pulled the trigger.
What did you say?
It was about 5 pages, handwritten. And I knew I get the police officer who came to watch Shot Bro, who compressed my wound. I gave it to him, and he gave it to that officer. And then it was like, I'm so sorry. That Rob that you met on that day was not the Rob that's writing to you now. I didn't realize I was dealing with all this unresolved trauma. I didn't have any tools. Just basically, if we could meet up at some time, and I would like to apologize to you face to face for causing you mental distress. So I had somebody from let's say I'll call him a rangatira, and he said everybody was doing their job on that day, Rob. You were doing your job to try and get off the planet. The police were doing their job to try and stop you. So everything worked out how it was supposed to. And it's just been grateful enough to now, I really want to help the police as well. I want to help the Ministry of Justice Department look at their protocols. Because, in the States, bro, the FBI hire the hackers who hacked into the FBI. So why don't you hire me? Kia ora.
Yeah, it's a really good point. And I think, more of those organizations need that sort of lived experience and advocacy, because there's such old school systems that just don't meet the needs of the people they're trying to serve. So when you go through this court proceeding, you got the 4 charges that are being pressed against you. What was, do you remember the, I guess, like sentencing day, and how were you feeling?
We had multiple court cases, multiple. And the judge changed sort of halfway through.
Oh, right.
So new judge, different perspective. It was pretty obvious that the first judge was a great box ticker for the police, and the second judge was just wanted to know all the facts without emotion. So looked at the facts and sort of came to a similar conclusion that, as my lawyer did, he's not a criminal. Yes, he did create a chaotic moment, and the public were worried, but he's not a criminal. So I had a lot of references from different people I've met in my life, which made me cry, bro, because I didn't think I deserved any of that. The way I was thinking, it was like, you don't even deserve to be here, Rob. So for people to write reference letters from their company or their organization, like putting their organization, that meant that the world to me, because the judge was reading all of those from various people that I'd met in my life. And my lawyer did say, make sure you don't get a whole lot of actors and writers, right? Can you just make sure that the occupations are varied? So I did. And it sort of gave the judge a different interpretation of me than one that the police were putting in front of her. So just sort of humanized Rob.
And that's like what we were saying earlier, like when people feel like they don't have any support mechanisms to even speak up, like how you were feeling at the time in 2009. But then on the flip side, now you're receiving an abundance of support and letters and testimonies from friends and family, and probably people that you didn't even realize that you had touched and impacted in that way. But I guess within everyone, there's always that ecosystem of support, whether you think it's there or it's not.
Absolutely, brother, because when you're swirling and you're the one in mental distress, you make up a whole story that everyone hates you, no one loves you, they're talking about you right now. And that's voice. So I call it the taniwha. My friend, she works in mental health, she calls hers Donald Trump because he keeps telling her fake news. And she had to work that out. I've got another friend, he doesn't call it, he calls it the Wallabies versus the All Blacks. He said, the Wallabies are beating the All Blacks today, so I know it's a bad mental health day. That's his terminology. So whatever it is, it's however you feel safe enough to relay it to somebody.
Yeah. Because
it is fake news. And people think it's real, and that's not. And if you're in that constant state of fight or flight all the time, how do you know that it's the truth? You don't. You've just assumed.
Very true, bro. And the black dog, there's so many different terminologies.
Bananas and pajamas, call it whatever you want, depower it.
Yeah, totally. Rob, what was the first conversation that you had with your whānau after the incident?
Oh, man, I remember that. I remember my dad and my stepmom making it up to my room. And I had the police in there like watching me as if I was going to be a Batman and jump out of the bed, but I could barely move. I can't remember exactly, but I just remember them coming up there and just feeling scared, shamed, but there, once again, it was just mumbled words to me, but it was loving and caring and warm. But I remember another time Dad came back up and he put his hand on my shoulder, on my head, while I'm in hospital bed, and he said the words, "Love you, boy," and that hit me right in the heart, because I thought, I don't think I've heard that. Or I couldn't remember that I've ever heard that.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize I'd been waiting for that. I was 36 at the time. I didn't realize that, bro.
Just those 3 words, eh? And, you definitely hear that a lot through, especially macho men and macho fathers who, I I don't know your dad personally, but for those that might have like a macho sort of male role model in their life and never really shows them what traditionally would be love and affection, and maybe leaning a bit more into that, not even feminine side, but just even saying those words is so important for a young child, right?
Absolutely. And may I just jump onto that? Because when my friends would visit me at my dad's, sometimes they go, "Hey, old man loves you, eh?" And I was like, what did he say something? And they're like, "No, he keeps bringing food over." So I didn't realize that's the old man would do stuff like that, not with words.
Yeah.
And I suppose it's to be aware, right, what sort of language your parents speak. And we had a 90-year-old gentleman, Ko Matua, come to one of my presentations. And we have a forum after every presentation. And he said he's got his 2 daughters and his granddaughter, who's probably 19. And he said, "I didn't realize I was speaking to my son in such a harsh way for all these years until my granddaughter said, 'Stop being mean to my dad.'" He wasn't speaking the same way to his daughters. But as a man, it had been passed down that he speaks. And he said, "If me as a 90-year-old man can learn something, there's hope for us all." But his granddaughter is holding his hand while he's saying it like she's his support person.
That's amazing. And sometimes like the best way to get that message across is through either someone's granddaughter, their daughter, somebody's wife. That's how you can like influence a change in their psyche and their mindset, is usually through those who they're loved by.
Yes, they're one step removed.
Totally. How did surviving the gunshot impact your understanding of life and death, Rob, as well as your own mental health journey?
I was in pain all the time, so there was no more hiding, no more pretending. The family couldn't sweep it under the carpet either, so it was a public event. So the family had to deal with harassing media all the time. They were very protective of me. I was just trying to process the pain, why my bodily functions are like my guts cut wide open, I'm having to dress my own wounds. So I'm like, basically, I'm looking at my own shit every day for at least 4 months before the bag is changed over. I have a reversal operation, so I can't hide anymore. My family are checking in on me. Now I've got a therapist I have to go and see. And that was like freaky too, because you've been taught not to speak, and all of a sudden you're being coached to try to speak. You're like, this is freaking me out. If I speak up, I could cause more damage. That's how I was thinking at the time. That's a trauma-informed response.
And if you were to look back at Rob on that day when you called the police on yourself, what if you were that Rob that you were, if that Rob was the Rob that you are now, what would you have done differently in that situation to look after your own well-being?
Oh, I've got tons of. I had no tools.
What are those tools, bro?
The tools are, first of all, practice being kind to yourself in the silence. You're not crazy. You're actually hurting. Because a lot of people and families dismiss that person in the family and go, he or she's just being crazy. That's just the way they've always been.
So true.
And I say to people, you're not crazy. You're hurting. And you're allowed as much goddamn help as you need, as often as you need. Those two are the 2 main ones. And when I've got a multitude of tools. I've got a tight 3, like the front row of a Ford pack, that are people I've nominated that I trust with my life, that I can text or call anytime, night or day, and they listen without judgment. So I go around the country in my kaupapa that I present. I share that with people, and I said, "Who's in your tight 3?" And I've actually heard people say, "I don't have a tight 1." And I said, "Well, it sounds like your circle's pretty crap. You might have to change it." And they don't like hearing that. But I go, if you don't have one person in your circle that you trust with your life, then you need to change, man.
Yeah.
Something needs to change. So I've got type 5 and people around the country that I've gone to present to and are leaders in their community, we check up on each other. And so sometimes they need to reach in, and they know that they reach in. Even now, I find it difficult to reach out.
True.
Even now.
True. That's interesting to hear. And I think it's really good to hear that even now you find that, it can still be it doesn't necessarily get easier, but it's something you have to do.
Yes. And then one time in the beginnings, I held on to it for 3 weeks, and then I freaked out because that pot was boiling. I text all 3 of my type 3, And then the first one to ring was the lucky winner to talk to Rob. But one rang, and then the other two texted, and then someone started ringing again. I was like, okay, I've got so-and-so, don't worry, I've got it, I've got it. And the great question was, why did it take so long, Rob? So but at that time, your ego manifests into a way, and it was my ego or my taniwha or my fake news was saying, you useless piece of crap, Rob. You're going around telling people to look at their mental health. You can't even deal with this right now. Look at you. You're a failure. And that voice started to come back. I was like, oh my God, I'm a failure. Oh, you're right. Oh, everyone's going to figure out. And it was kind of like an old tape came back to me. So when I rang the three made sure they and kept asking me the next few days, why did you not call me? And I told them what I just told you. So it's practicing talking that hurt into the light with the people that you trust. Because you chose them. No one else chose them. You chose them.
Do you tell them proactively as well that you are like one person, you're my mate, which I'm going to call when shit's in the fan?
Yeah, I
so
actually
they know
asked
that
them,
responsibility?
Yes, I've asked them. The ones I asked them personally. Can you be on my tight 3? Which is text or call anytime, night or day. So I'm on many other people's tight 3.
Yeah.
So when it becomes too much for even me, I like, and I've got a lot of tools. I'm helping suicidal people on the phone, in person. And I go, wow, this is out of my $2 pay bracket. I need to call in the other tight 2. And so all of a sudden now you've got a circle of light and aroha around that person in distress. Between the 3 of you or even 5 of you, you can figure out what's best to help the person who doesn't want to be on the planet. So it's sort of like taking a weight off your shoulders. Yeah. So you personally don't have to carry it. It's too much for one person.
Yeah. Far out. It's and especially if the work that you're doing, and I look at a video, I think it was a couple of years now, where Mike King was speaking on the radio. I think it was on The Rock, and he was just exhausted. Like, I think that was basically the point of his korero. It was like, I can't keep doing this anymore. Like, I just can't do it. And you made me really realize that the position we put individuals like yourself, Rob, like Mike King, like Sir John Kerwin, is actually a really hard space to operate in, because you're dealing with not just your shit, which everyone has, you're dealing with other people's shit, and they want solution, guidance, support, and afi from you. Yeah. So does that ever get too much or overwhelming for you now?
It can if I'm not taking care of myself. So I got a lot of love for Mike King. Mike King personally helped me on my journey.
Awesome.
He got me on this journey. I'd never heard a male speak so openly about his mental health before in my life at the beginning of my journey. Him and his right-hand man, Boris Sogratov from the Nutters Club, which is a radio show every Sunday night. Those two gentlemen opened up the door for me in 2011. I wasn't ready, but I didn't realize I needed to hear men, really public men out in the public doing being so vulnerable and share their mental health journey. It wasn't until 2016 did I launch Shop Bro. But thanks to those two gentlemen, I knew where the doorway was. No one had showed me that before. So when I look at John and like Sir John Kerwin, a massive fan, although when he was on TV and I wasn't getting any help and I was building up to my shooting, I would watch his ad and tell quietly in my mind, say, shut up, John, shut your big mouth, stop talking about it, because that was the negative trauma response. And when I say this to people in my forums, they're like, oh God, that's exactly what my voice is saying right now. We shouldn't be talking about it. So by breaking that taboo in a safe place, Mike King, Sir John Kerwin, as males, have helped me a lot. But brother, in Te Ao Māori, it's not mental well-being, it is spiritual and mental well-being. So if those aren't aligned, that affects everything. So I'm making sure I've got a spiritual framework as well as a mental, physical. And as we talked before, I'm doing Brazilian Jiu Jitsu, which is
the best therapy.
Best therapy last 10, 11 months, which is another tool on my healing tool belt to physicalize, have a physical outlet to work on the mind.
Yeah. That's incredible, bro. And I think, the model of Te Whare Tapawha, the 4 pillars being so integral. And it's just, how do you create a good foundation for yourself to be physically present, but mentally present, alongside the other pillars. And I'm so glad you're on the jiu-jitsu journey as well, brother.
Same, brother. Thanks to Nick.
Bro, white belt life forever, I reckon. It's the most...
That's me, bro. Humbling, man.
Bro, the most humbling... Have you had some really humbling experience?
Oh, I'm talking about in most classes, brother. And, it would crack me up. One class, I thought, man, I'm really progressing. Then I went to a different class and I got the hiding of my life. I went, that was all in the same day. I went 1 in the morning and then 1 in the evening. I was like, oh, I'm useless.
Mate.
I'm useless. For 1 second, second I thought I was getting somewhere.
And then, yeah, it just gets, the harsh reality just gets thrown back at you. It's such a love-hate, but also addicting sport. Like,
Yes.
even though you're getting smashed and sometimes don't feel like making any progress, it's like, you just want to keep showing up because it's so much fun. But also, I find like the relationships with jiu-jitsu is what keeps me going. Like,
Yeah.
I'm still yet to meet a dickhead on the mats.
Same.
Yeah.
Same. I'm a massive fan of all the people at our club. And on occasion, I've gone to different clubs and when I'm touring shop, bro, and they, like you just said, haven't met one bad person. They're really awesome human beings.
Yeah, bro. No, it is the best. And it's so funny when you're rolling with someone who might be like 30 kgs lighter than you. Sweet, walk in the park. It could be like a female, and you're like, okay, this shouldn't. You know, the ego comes into your mind, and you're like, this will be easy, and then you just get folded up into a pretzel, and you're tapping like 3 seconds later.
Brother, that was this wahine in our club. She's got a blue belt, and her name is Louisa. She's a school teacher.
Yeah.
Skinny, smaller than me.
Yeah.
I could not believe that when she got this triangle on, that I thought I could power my way out of it because my ego was like, I'm no way am I going to get choked out. And oh man, I was seeing stars, man. I had to tap. And I showed some people a photo of her, and male mates of mine have laughed. I went, that little thing. I went, you're laughing at me now. You turn up to class. Let's see how you go.
Yeah, you should definitely bring them onto the mats and just get her to challenge them because I'm sure she'd love it as well.
Oh, she would.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome, bro. When it comes to your performance as well, that's something throughout the Shot Bro documentary where I was like, holy shit, I haven't seen an individual express themselves that creatively.
Yes.
And I was just blown away around that's like your tool and your vehicle and your vessel to spread more awareness around mental health. And I hadn't seen that done before. So can you talk a little bit more around like what's the influence and inspiration behind your acting and your performance around the mental health kaupapa?
Well, I had to find an outlet to let this out. So in the documentary, you may have seen it, I had a friend of mine who took his life, and his ex-wife with their 3 little sons around the grave. She was obviously, we're all devastated, especially them. And she said, Rob, you got to do something about this. And it sounded very stupid and pathetic at the time, but it says I'm creating a play or I'm making a play, a theatre show. And she said, just do something because look where we're at. They're devastated. So I made something that I'd go and watch and listen. So it took 7 years to create this. I'd watch TED Talks, like the best of the best. And it bored the shit out of me because it was for an elite group of people.
Yeah, right.
It was all this knowledge at a high end, but it didn't really speak to me. And I was like, I'm getting depressed about your talk about depression. So I wanted to watch something that I'd listen to. So that's what I created with the help of my dear friend Edina Daniels, who helped direct this. And lots of people helped me along this journey. But it's kind of like my friends in acting say, you're doing the opposite to what we're taught. You're taking all the masks off to be yourself fully 100%. That's what freaks actors out when they see this. I'm not being Rob a character. They're like, Rob is showing his heart, his guts, his vulnerability, the truth, so we can laugh and cry at the same time, like, because this is a human experience. So I'm grateful that we created this because, you know, BJJ is a great supplement for what I do with Shot Pro. So when I'm doing Shot Pro, I don't really need BJJ as much because I'm getting the physical, the mental, the spiritual workout all at once. And plus I'm pretty wasted after holding space.
Yeah,
so
you'll be exhausted.
So what you also said before about helping people is the trick is, it's not a trick, but it's a practice. You have to practice holding space for people, not their problems. Because as you said before, we've all got our own problems. I've got mine. So I'm still unpacking them. And I talk to social workers, the new generation. I say 2 things. Don't hide behind your degree and not do any healing. And you're only there to hold space. Practice holding the space how you'd like to be listened to if you were hurting. Don't hide behind the textbook.
Yeah, that's beautiful, bro. I think, so many people need to hear that message. And I just love, like what you said earlier, it's you not being a character, it's Rob being Rob. You know, it's like, this is you in its purest, most vulnerable form. And to have the balls to stand up there, like, there's no way I would be able to do that. Like, just getting in front of people and being that creative and confident, I don't feel like my brain would be able to do that. Like, do you get nervous when you do those skits? And
Yes. What Shop Bro says to me, because it's like, BJJ, you know where you're at mentally because you physically rinse yourself out. That's what Shop Bro does for me. It physically, mentally, spiritually rinses me. It'll point to I go, how am I really on a deep level? That's what Shop Bro and BJJ have the equivalent to each other.
I see.
Except the emotional and the spiritual is fully connected to that.
Yeah.
So it makes me realize where I'm at. And some people say, well, if you're really depressed and you have an anxiety, Shop Bro helps because I'm bringing it into the light. I'm illuminating it. I'm not hiding. So it's But I do play characters in Shop Bro, but that's all Rob telling them, as Rob would tell them, like I'm telling a mates at a barbecue. So I want my mates to laugh because I don't want them to carry the heaviness. Because the kaupapa itself is so heavy and so personal to people who have lost loved ones that you have to. The humor is just another form of light. That's what it is. So it goes dark light, dark light, dark light. So padded by humor, which is light.
Yeah, I think almost like comedy has that way of. I think someone said it. I don't know who. So I'm totally stealing the kudos from whoever said this quote, but it's almost like comedy has a way of like massaging really hard and complex issues so people can understand it in their psyche and not maybe be offended or not listen to something which they wouldn't usually listen to, but through a lens of humor, it's almost like it becomes easier to digest. And I think such a gold point within that is one of my favorite comedic skits is Jim Jeffries, Australian comedian, where he's in a American audience. And I'll send it to you if you haven't seen it. And everyone should go and listen to it. But he's in an American audience and he's just absolutely going in on American gun owners, just saying like how ridiculous it is around the Second Amendment, but he's doing it. If you were to do that speech and get the messages he's getting across just in the presentation, the American audience would be bloody throwing their shoes and and tomatoes, probably like throwing some guns up at him. But because he's doing it through the lens of comedy, it's like they understand the rationale and it's hilarious and he gets those messages across. So do you find that with your kaupapa, bro?
Yeah, and I purposely put humor in there to lighten the heavy load. So I suppose it's a strange thing. Is it a compliment? Yes, it is a compliment. I've had people who've lost loved ones and they've come to try and look at a different angle, perspective of it. And they've said to me personally afterwards, because we have a forum followed by food. So we all share food and drink cups of tea to keep connecting with each other and get people help. And for them to come up to me on occasion and go, thank you for that. I was taken by surprise how funny that was. I didn't expect any of that to happen to me. I mean, for me to be laughing. Because it's so heavy.
And it's a taboo subject.
Yeah, and it's someone they love, but I strategically made that for suicidal Rob to look at and go, see, Rob, there is light in here. You think there's only darkness, Rob? Rob, there's light in here. So what I realized, going around Australasia, everyone's got a different version of what I've got, but we're in the same ballpark. That's why it resonates.
Through sharing and doing storytelling and the approach that you do, have you found that to be like a good approach as well for dealing with your own mental health through sharing it with others?
Yeah, and I can be more direct these days. I can just spew it right out. This is shit for me at the moment. And then this is crap. Thanks, bro. I suppose I like to get out more direct. Yeah. But I didn't have the courage to do that. So Shop Bro, what people have told me from the beginning to where it is now, is they said you did more movement, less talking. Now you've got a vernacular, a cordial that explains to people even more clearly. So I suppose Shop Bro helped me build some words. And now I don't have to do Shop Bro. Like I can just go and speak to a group of men at a construction site or a logging company or just got out of prison. But it's a tikanga framework that I'm working with all the time. And that is just like a mihi whakato, just to acknowledge where you're from. Where's everybody from? What's your whakapapa? I'll get my whakapapa. And then now I'll tell you why this happened to me. So it's given me the courage to go outside of the Shop Bro framework to be a keynote speaker. Whereas before I just hide. That's too freaky.
Yeah, true. Yeah, that's really nice. And do you ever find through this work, bro, that you like does it get taxing to yourself having to, because it's such a personal and deep and raw conversation that you're always having, and to have those stories coming back to you. Do you ever find that taxing to yourself?
If I'm not taking care of myself, yes.
Yeah.
So once again, practice. So we've got a framework. So we start with karakia, we end with karakia, and then once people ground themselves, like my cousin and I, if it's my cousin Clint and I, we like to try and jump in the ocean afterwards.
Nice.
If there's a river or an ocean, we try and do that just to cleanse.
Good cleanse, yeah.
And then also we have a debrief. Whoever's my sound technician, they're usually people I trust in my life. So I might choose one for Kindergarten Teachers Association Conference, one for Maximum Security Prison of Remutsaka, or Paremoremo. So these people that I choose, I strategically choose because I trust them with my life, and they've got different skill sets to me. So it's making sure we do karakia. We have a debrief. So what are the things that came up? And we call them highlights. 3 things you got out of this today, and 1 thing you'll take home in your heart. So as you're giving highlights to each other, you're also remembering, oh, I saw that person crying in the left-hand corner. I was worried about her the whole time. And then whoever's next to me, who's my sound technician, go, yeah, I saw her. And so we just sort of processed about that. And next time we go to a community, we might say to the social workers, or we said it recently, we're in Wanganui doing 3 presentations. If you see somebody crying and they run out and you know them, even if you don't, follow them out. And bring them back in, because there's more healing tools in there. It just comes in waves. And that's why I say, brother, I don't want to go. I just want to say this, particularly for men, crying is better than dying, particularly for men.
And it's, yeah, I totally agree. And talking as well, you know, it's talking, crying, that sort of vulnerability. And it is so, I wonder what it is within the New Zealand, like Kiwi psyche, which has made us so like complacent as males to speak up about our mental health. Like, I wonder what it is. What is it in the small like melting pot of New Zealand that's making us feel this way?
Easy, bro. Behavior has a whakapapa. So we whakapapa back to Britain. Those values were brought here to New Zealand. And you're just, everything is prim and proper, stiff upper lip. And so that's passed into the New Zealand psyche.
Yeah.
And especially our uncles and grandfathers' generation, aunties, that is so taboo.
Oh, mental health wasn't even a thing, like, or wasn't a thing you'd speak about.
If you thought about it, you might get in trouble.
Yeah.
So to speak about it now, they're like, oh my God, geez, that person's either real courageous, or they go, that person's got a big mouth.
Yeah.
Because they've been taught a different way to us. And that's just how it is.
Yeah, it is. It is crazy. I'm just so grateful, bro, for individuals like yourself to be promoting this message, and also using your time to come on the podcast and also help spread this to more young people. So it's something I'm deeply passionate about, and I'm just glad there's more people out there like you doing the mahi. So massive thanks, brother.
Brother, thank you. I'm going to say thank you, but I'd like to put the light back on you. I watched your podcast and the way that you conduct yourself, brother, and the stories that you get out of people, because, brother, you make it so easeful, and you make the person sitting across you feel safe. So thank you, brother.
No, I appreciate that, bro.
Thank you. I'm strange being here live, then watching you on
YouTube. The behind the scenes.
Yes.
Before we move on, and I really appreciate those words, bro. Thanks. It's very nice of you.
Welcome, bro.
Kind of just making this thing up as we go along, but it's just real grateful to hold this space. We'll move to some quick fire questions, and then we'll finish off with the quote. And I feel like I could keep talking, but we don't have all day on the memory card, unfortunately.
Okay,
Rob, what brings you true happiness?
True happiness is learning to like and love myself.
Advice you wish you knew about when you were younger?
Take Jiu Jitsu up for the age of 5. Not the age of 50. Oh my God.
Bro.
No, truly, I'll just go, make sure you got a circle of people who love and care about you.
Nice. What does legacy mean to you?
I leave that in other people. People say that all the time. Legacy to me is up to other people. I just want to make sure people know that they're worth it, and they're not dead. That's it. I just want you to stay alive. That's legacy. Leave that to other people.
If you could change one thing in New Zealand, what would this be?
Compassion has to be written into policy, because some people forget it.
Ooh, I like that. That's a good one. What do you believe is the main thing that is holding back young people in New Zealand?
Permission and guidance, I suppose, because they're not acknowledged. High suicide teen rate. teen suicide rate. They need to be acknowledged and listened to.
Awesome. We'll finish off with a quote from the one and only Arnold Schwarzenegger. Just to finish the podcast on that note.
Oh, Matua Arnold.
Strength does not come from winning. Your struggles develop your strengths. When you go through hardships and decide not to surrender, that is strength. Cheers, team. Thanks, Rob.
Mighty order. Thank you, brother.